All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Joint Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, April 25th. Tonight we'll be discussing the budget and the warrant articles that we'll be bringing forth at annual town meeting on May 9th. Before we begin that meeting, I would ask, is there anybody here for public forum? Lydia, our town clerk.
To mention, I know John has it posted on cable, but I just wanted to mention it on TV so that other people could hear that the absentee ballots for the annual town election are now available. So anyone that is going to be out of town or has a disability or for some medical reasons can't attend the election, please come see me during my normal business hours and get an application, and don't forget to vote.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here for public forum? Okay. Seeing none, I guess we'll go right into the 2018 proposed budget in our budget hearing. The Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen have been working independent of one another for months, and more recently with one another over the last few weeks to go through the budget, try to honor the requests from the various departments as best we could, given the budget circumstances, and try to come up with the recommendation for town meeting for you, the townspeople, to question and ask questions of, and to ultimately have your say at town meeting on May 9th. So having said that, I don't know if we want me to leave it over to the Finance Committee, or did you want to go through line by line, or is there a high-level overview? Is there something you guys think makes more sense?
I think it's best, I don't think we need to go line by line. We can go through changes.
Yeah.
And then we can discuss what we did with COLA and salary
Sure.
adjustments.
Yep.
And you're doing a great job.
Well, it was, other than the COLA and the salary adjustments, it was requested of the town departments to try to submit a level funded budget, like we do every year, and that's, you have to have a place to start. And so we appreciate all the various departments and committees in town, bringing forth the level funded budget and making requests and increases where they felt it was necessary. Some we were able to honor, and others we weren't, quite frankly. But again, we're within a budget limitation, and the good news is I think we did a pretty good job with with the amounts of money we know or are expected, and trying to appease the different work groups that we could. So I'm tired now. It's your turn, Darryl.
Well, we can go down. So the first major change, and you guys make sure I'm on key, is on line number 3, and it's actually going to be more than that. Do I have the right line for the?
Yes, line 3, and we added another 10 to that line.
So that's going to be 33,499, and so approximately $30,000 of that is going to be used to help. There are a lot of needs right now in the town hall. There's a lot of offices that are struggling. I shouldn't say struggling, but there's a lot of work and there's not enough hours. And so one of the things that the select board has decided, and along with us, is we're going to have some consulting done and look at what would be best going forward to address some of these. We felt it was important that somebody professionally looked at it, and that's going to happen. And we wanted to put some money in a place for professional services, so when the accountant needs help, we can get them some help. When the treasurer needs help, we can get some help. DPW, we have some needs, administrative needs there, and hopefully that will make life a little bit easier for a very taxed already current administrative staff that we have now. Anybody want to add to that?
Well, I think it's got to be pointed out too that Hatfield is what they call a little big city, whereas even though we're not the same size as Northampton, we're required to have the same kind of reports as the city of Northampton and the same kind of amount of work for the city of Northampton. So I think people have to be aware of that too.
And in addition, we're running a school district, which nobody else except for Hadley is actually really doing. There might be one, is there one other town?
North Brookfield.
That's K through 12?
Yeah, that's K through
Not
12.
very many of them.
Yeah, there are many. So, you know, it really, well, all the regional and vocational schools would have a business manager who did a lot of work on behalf of the schools, and we don't really have that. It's, all that function is happening in town hall. So it really, just based on the size of the budget, it dramatically increases the amount of work that you're doing versus a town of this size that doesn't have a K through 12 school
Sure.
district.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other, so as we go further down the budget, major changes, not major.
No.
The next change would be in the town clerk, right? It's not on my spreadsheet, but we did just add $9,450 to that, so that the
476.
so that the clerk and the assistant clerk can both have additional hours and additional coverage of town hall, which has been a need. Let me go further down, and I think we turn the page.
Yep.
The next change would be, we've addressed some needs at the fire department. We've added about $5,400 to Chief Gaughan's budget so that he can increase the services and then ultimately the income that the fire department brings in with permits and fees, and also he is upgrading our ambulance service from a intermediate service to a paramedic service, which will be additional calls that they will be able to handle in town, and that money will come to us instead of going to, right now, a lot of those calls are handled by Northampton. So, anybody have any comments?
No, all I would say is it's one of those kind of costs of doing business expenses. You have to put a little something up front in order to get something back in the end. And so that's the goal. Well, it's a $5,400 increase. We expect that that's going to certainly increase the revenue stream coming back to the town.
Right, yep. Next, the next major change would be the school department. They've got, of course, they make up most of our budget, but
You're welcome.
their increase is actually $129,000. And I think one of the things that we have to recognize as a town is it's pretty tough to level fund a school system. Level fund means a lot of cuts. We have teachers and contracts that need to be met, plus the school is in a competitive environment where they are competing for students for school choice, and quite frankly, from my opinion, doing a great job doing it, and making sure that they have the tools to continue to offer these to out-of-town students the education that they're getting is really an important thing, so. Brian?
Yeah, well, putting on my school committee hat for a second, I echo what Daryl's saying. The original request from the school department was a little bit higher, but due to some restructuring that's taking place with the special ed costs, we were able to lower that amount. And yeah, the superintendent and the staff, everyone does a great job offering the services not only to our students, but the students who come here and call Smith Academy and Hatfield Elementary School home. Well, also, just to be clear, the school budget, overall budget is made up of $865,000 of school choice monies. So yes, there's an increase that we're looking for the for some of the additional sped staff and computer staff, but there's also almost $1 million that is going into the school department budget. So I think that's important. When people just see an increase, we often don't talk about some of the other monies that are supplanting that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was out there.
Yeah, it's really important to know that it is a competitive environment. I mean, unlike any other town service, with the exception of maybe ambulance in a weird way, but
Right.
I mean, if you have a fire at your house, there's no option to decide whether Northampton comes and puts it out and you pay them, or whether Hatfield or Whately does it. Going to school is a different matter. It wasn't set up that way by the town of Hatfield, but that's the world we live in. And as long as it's competitive, you have to be competitive, especially when you depend on school choice students for revenue. It makes up a third-ish of students,
Yeah.
about 25%. And so, with 25% less, and it probably makes up more than that of revenue, because what's being sent is not what it's being necessarily cost to educate. So you couldn't cut a third of the school budget out and keep the schools open.
No.
So, I mean, it's a necessity that we remain competitive, unless we plan to have a different plan.
Yeah.
Great. Vocational ed, there was a bit of an increase, but not too bad, and that's one of those line items that you kind of have no choice. If 8 students decide that they're gonna go to Smith Voc, then we pay what Smith Voc is gonna charge us, and we're gonna pay for the transportation to get them there. It's
Right.
pretty much as simple as that.
Yep.
Okay.
That does work out to be a pretty good arrangement for the town.
Oh, it's
I mean, given how the costs at Smith Voc are distributed, and the fact that it's not truly a regional vocational school, we actually wind up getting a bit of a break on that, because mostly we don't cover capital costs over there. I'm sure Mayor Narcoitz doesn't want to hear this. But
Right. Okay, as we go further down the budget, there's some increase in DPW highway, but I think that's mostly salary, as in union stuff. As we go down through, there's nothing really big that has changed. Library, there's a little bit of an increase, but library is one of those funny things. If they don't get a little bit of an increase, then some grant, one of the grants they get is taken away from them.
Right.
So it's kind of always benefited the town to make sure the couple $1,000s extra gets into their budget so that they get that grant.
That's it, right?
Yeah, I think those are the major changes in the budget. There's some adjustments to retirement, group health insurance, Medicare, but that's, you pay what you gotta pay.
Right.
You don't have much choice there. And I guess if anybody, do we offered out the questions on the general budget? Does anybody have any questions that's here in the audience?
You're gonna start covering the articles?
Mhm.
Capital?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, I just want to make sure if anybody's got
No
a
line item.
general budget question, you can answer it.
So maybe we should just, so we are under the levy limit. I don't know if we even, did
Oh,
we
we
start
didn't
with
even
that?
talk
Or
about
I don't know, we talked about page 1 necessarily, or wherever we were, but.
Right now, go ahead, Sean,
We're roughly $15,000 under the levy limit.
Under the levy limit,
Yeah.
yep.
which is a pretty good place to be,
Yeah,
gives
Yeah,
us.
you don't wanna take it right up there unless you absolutely
Right.
have to, because any errors or any miscalculations
Right.
in revenue estimates or anything would be a major problem if you're right at the limit, so.
right.
Right. And,
I would like to thank all the committee, the departments, and everyone who have spent a lot of hours trying to come in with a level-funded budget. And also the modest increases are basically to increase some income, to help us with customer service at the town hall, and to also look at some reorganization in the future. So I do, hands off to you guys for all the hours that you spent and all the effort you put in, along with all the departments. So I just want to make sure we.
No, thank
we
you.
bring that
Nope,
up.
good point.
thank you.
Thanks,
So
Ed.
do we want to talk, the next page is basically water sewer, and
Yeah.
that's been a challenge the last bunch of years. And I think it's gotten a little bit better. We in town don't really have a true enterprise fund. We like to think we have a true enterprise fund, but it's not quite that. We're a little bit better, I know. It pains us when we get the water bill or sewer bill, but it is expensive to run that department. And we anticipate, once free cash and, what's the word? You know what I mean?
Unencumbered fund balances
Yeah.
are certified.
Right, once these balances are certified, we'll have a better idea where we actually are. We did increase our revenue estimates just a little bit by about $50,000 based on what we did for, what was done for rate increases last year. And that additional $50,000 will be used to revamp the electrical system at the Omasta well, which is kinda needs to be done. And especially if we have a dry year like we had last year, we depend on our wells because the reservoir just doesn't collect enough water, so.
So even in spite of increasing our revenue estimates, we should just say that we did not, in fact, we reduced the expenses of water and sewer by pulling out some things out of water and sewer that used to be
Right.
paid for by water and sewer, or, well, sometimes we're paid for and sometimes we're unable to pay for out of water and sewer. So, some salaries that are in the budget now are under taxation that used to be under water and sewer, which actually reduces our capacity to pay for things under the levy limit.
Right.
So, we're sort of moving in paying for the well project is nice, but, you know, even with the increase, we haven't really reached the point yet where we could say we're even moving in the direction of water and sewer paying its expenses. Never mind its capital costs. It doesn't pay its capital costs, but at one time, it sort of paid its expenses or came close, and we're moving in the opposite direction from that, even with increases.
Right.
So eventually, that's gonna have to be addressed somehow,
Right.
because you can't keep moving. I mean, it will never be really a true enterprise fund, probably, but you keep moving in the wrong direction,
Right.
is probably not good either. You know, I mean, I guess in one good side, it's reducing taxes on some level, but the bad side is that, you know, the town is further subsidizing the sewer and water system.
And we've really been on a path to rebuild our sewer plant. It's probably been 10 years, and, you know, rotating biological contactors and roofs and all these things have much needed and,
They're
you
expensive.
know,
We're building a new sewer
We're
plant piece
building
by
a new-
piece,
Right.
essentially, yeah.
right.
Essentially.
We probably, when we originally built it, got a little bit of help. We don't get much help anymore, so. Any questions, water and sewer? Okay. I think. Next is, are these are some of the capital items, right, Marlene?
Yes.
And I guess I should say up front, the difficulty we've had this year with capital items is, we don't have a free cash number yet. We fully anticipate that we'll have a free cash number by town meeting. In the event that we don't have one, many of these projects will just be put on hold until we can have another town meeting to address them once we have solid numbers. Free cash is one of those things we use for capital items. There's not a lot of there's no money in taxation virtually for any of these capital items, but we'll go through them, and,
Excuse me, Darrell, I'd just like to say
Yeah.
that I talked with Tom Scanlon Jr. today. We will be submitting free cash in Schedule A tomorrow.
that's great news. Wow. That's good.
We're not sure when it,
Yeah, we don't know how much. We have some rough ideas, but it's not even, we can't even guess at this point.
Well, Darrell, you have a number there.
All based on,
You know.
contingent on free
Yeah,
cash.
Right.
But you must have an educated guess to come up with 488.
Well,
We'll call it 488.
it's not that educated. I
It's
mean,
not that
I mean,
educated.
those are projects,
needs.
those are projects we would like to do if the money comes in at that level,
All right.
you know.
Right.
Prioritize needs.
If free
We'll-
cash is
we'll-
not certified, we would table those
We would just
articles.
table
I
all.
understand,
Right.
but I'm just saying,
Right.
you wouldn't even put them up for consideration
Well, they
unless you
came,
had some numbers.
I mean, that's the
Right.
problem is they came from capital planning as 2018 needs, essentially.
Sure.
We try to prioritize them without knowing what the free cash number is, which is kind of like buying a car without a budget, you know, like, yes, I want the, you know, $60,000 car, but I might not be able to afford that. So, I mean, that's kind of what this is. We don't know yet whether that's realistic or not, but we'll have to prioritize as we find out whether it's realistic or not, I guess, so. We're not sure, honestly.
I
Right.
do have a question on the first one, which is the reimbursement, community preservation revenues.
So there,
Where's that coming from?
well, there was, a few years ago,
46,000.
there was an accounting error,
Oh,
and, a project was not complete, and there was no money left, and somehow it came out of community preservation.
There were multiple streams of money in the project,
Right,
and one of them was community preservation, and there was $46,000 worth of bills to pay, and there was money left, so they wound up getting hit with all the bills that came at the end of the project, because the other appropriation was gone based on sort of how it was being paid down. So they wound up covering $46,000 worth of stuff that wasn't necessarily.
More than what would have been
Right.
their share of the
Right.
project.
Right.
Right.
Should have been the town's share of the project.
Right.
yeah.
could they waive it? Is that, do they have the option of doing that?
They sure they could, I mean, they could vote to spend it, yeah.
They could,
town
but
asking
they
for it.
have requested that it
I
be
know, I'm
returned
just
to them.
saying, you know,
It could-
'cause
They've requested
They
it,
got about
and-
$1 million sitting in there, so, you
Well,
know.
there's a number of items that they're paying for here as well.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could waive it out theoretically, or do something else with it, or whatever. Yeah.
right. So then, you know, the next line, we have chapter 90 money, that's, we get that, that's not town money. Horse Mountain Reserve, that's grant funded, so we borrow and then pay for it, and then the grant pays for the loan. Is that how that works, Fran? Do I have that
Yeah.
right?
Is this Kestrel?
Yeah, it's Kestrel.
Yes.
They have to
Yeah.
vote and appropriate the money up front first.
Right. And then community preservation, they've got 69,000 for Horse Mountain acquisition, 2,000 for closing and legal for that same project, 9,500 for the Smith Academy Park, design for the pavilion. Old Mill rehabilitation, $82,250. Smith Charities building rehab, that's $2,000. And then the Hampshire County Courthouse rehab at $10,000. Which, believe it or not, we as the town of Hatfield have part ownership in that courthouse. Is that how that works?
Well, the courthouse belongs technically to all the inhabitants of Hampshire County. The inhabitants of Hampshire County built the courthouse, and determined where to place it. So, it's essentially, our building, collectively, all of us. So, you know, it has some value. The roof is, in need of repair. There's structural issues with the building that need to be fixed. And there is, an attempt to, there's a designation in a state bond bill to free up money for that, to do that. But part of getting that bond authorization freed up is demonstrating, commitment, at the local level. So towns, based on population, have been asked to contribute, and several towns have. Obviously, the city of Northampton has contributed from their own CPA, Goshen has contributed, lots of other towns have contributed. East Hampton, I think, was contributing, and so that's not the whole amount that Hatfield would be asked to do based on population. I think it's in the ballpark, though.
What if there was some article in the paper about redoing the court operation there and maybe moving it out? Did you see that a few days ago?
Court operation where?
The district court and so on, Superior, out of the court building?
Consolidation of courts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
Building
think this
one
would
larger
affect
court.
this?
I mean, personally, it seems unlikely to me that the court would move out of Northampton. It's the county seat. Well, has that ever happened? I don't think it's ever happened in the history of the Commonwealth that I know of. So, I mean, Greenfield didn't move the court to Bernardston, you know, or to, you know, Leiden. The court stayed in Greenfield as the county seat. I mean, that's pretty standard fare and pretty traditional.
They're done that whole new-
Not to mention, everyone who uses the court has offices within, you know, a 2-block radius of that courthouse. So you'd be talking about a major destruction of, you know.
Read the article, sure.
I will, I just think that, I think it's unlikely that the court would leave, you know, Northampton, but
Okay.
generally.
So then we get into some of our free cash.
But nonetheless, you'd still own the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
There you go.
The question becomes what you do with it. Okay.
well, it's
So
right in
the-
downtown Northampton, I'm sure you could rent it to somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Nothing thorns.
So the feasibility study, Council of Aging, Museum, and the television studio, this is a study to see what's best would fit those needs for, I can't remember which phase of the town hall, the next phase of the town hall project, is that?
Right.
Would be
Well, it'd be
phase
phase 3, actually.
Phase 3.
Right.
Kind
So-
of getting ready for the last piece of the
Right.
overall project.
And we do really want to address and make sure COA's needs are addressed downstairs, and hopefully this will help in that. So, next, we have town hall, front steps and railing. It says $50,000. We're hoping for a lower number, weren't we?
Oh, 50 is the lower number.
50
Right,
is the lower
50 is-
number.
yes.
Okay. And hopefully we'll get that since they're gonna fall down soon. Town hall server, infrastructure replacement, that's pretty important. Accounting software for the school department, this is extremely important, because it will and I hope I say this right, and John and Brian, you can correct me, but it will, and Derek, who's here, it will enable the school to input all their information and then send it directly over here to the town hall, rather than what has been happening for the last bunch of years where that's transcribed by hand, essentially.
Trying to take a lot of the daily manual back and forth to town hall labor out of this and streamline it, make it more efficient, and to interface with the town hall's billing system. So, you know, we hope to be on similar platforms, so they, you know, similar systems, so they talk to one another and not both have proprietary networks, which
Right.
doesn't do any of us any good, really.
Right.
You know, so, that's actually, I think, a long time coming and going to be beneficial, especially as we're looking at ways of improving the staff's time and what
Right.
with the things they're working on to lessen that burden of doing a lot of that manual stuff. So,
Right.
Yep.
One of the complications of having a K through 12 school system is that the coding, financial coding is different for the schools as opposed to the town. And so, having this computer system and having the software that goes with it will allow for the translation of the school accounts into the town schedule, and it will simplify things and make things much more streamlined and efficient. And well worth the investment.
Right.
Right. Next on the line, we have ambulance paramedic equipment. We talked a little bit about this earlier, upgrading our town service to a paramedic. It's gonna cost us some money initially for the equipment in order to do so, but should have pretty decent payback. Especially.
Can I say a word about that, Darryl?
Oh, yeah, go.
When Stephen came in, he gave us a preview of what this will mean to the community, and upgrading our service to the paramedic level will include paramedic equipment, which is what this item is, cardiac compression unit that operates automatically. All of the paramedic ambulances carry this now, and it does chest compressions automatically, so EMTs and paramedics are no longer doing chest compressions, which can be somewhat difficult in a moving ambulance. Not only does it automatically do the chest compressions, but it transmits data en route to Bay State, and our arrival time in Bay State, according to Stephen, is about 20 minutes. And so our cardiac calls now conservatively are about 30 per year, which surprised me, and I'm getting to the age where, you know, I might be looking for this kind of service. And at any rate, it transmits data so that when the patient arrives at Bay State, they can go into action immediately because they have all the data that's been transmitted. They know exactly what's going on with the person's heart and circulation, and it means life-saving minutes as a result. So this is a $60,000 item, but it's spread over 5 years and well worth the investment. We'll have 4 paramedics, 2 on staff, Stephen and the deputy chief, and 2 on call for a total of 4. So it's going to be a tremendous improvement.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Fran.
Thanks, Fran. So next, we've got the water transmission line. This is Chestnut Street to Gore Ave, and this is gonna be a debt exclusion, $740,000. And it's the next piece of that water transmission line that we started a couple years ago. Once we get that line, once we get that to Gore Avenue, then we can fully disconnect the pipe that is running under the swamp that we originally wanted to cut out, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is the most expensive part of the
Right.
project because we have to essentially build a
Over
bridge.
the river and through the swamp.
Yeah,
Yeah.
over, to get over there, to get up to Gore Avenue. So, anyway,
And we haven't been successful lately, but we do apply for every potential grant and funding source that we're made aware of, or that we're aware of.
Yeah.
But, so, who knows, maybe we'll hit it one of these times and be able to lessen that amount. But
Right.
right now, that's the estimated cost.
right. Next, we have that Omasta well pump that I already talked about, that's gonna come out of water sewer revenue. Then we have in that highway garage pole barn, there's a pole barn behind the highway garage that houses most of their equipment. And according to the building inspector, who's looked at it, it's in need of repair, so they need, this
Excuse
is
me.
$50,000 to replace the trusses and the roof on that, building. We've got a lot of money and equipment under there, and we certainly do not want a roof falling on top of it. We do have a sewer extension, Straits Road to the highway for $55,000. That would come out of free cash if we had free cash available. That, according to the DPW director, is a pretty cost-effective run. It's a short run. It picks up 6 houses.
Yeah.
6 houses, which the DPW, which Phil has said they all want to hook in, so that's additional revenue, not only for the hookup fee, but also continual revenue from sewer, water and sewer. So,
Also pick up the highway garage and the transfer station.
right.
And then-
Presently-
and He did also say that, I think he said that the septic system that's in the highway department area was built in 1976.
Yep.
And the cost of replacing that might be upon us at some point in the future, and so this would eliminate that cost.
Right. So then we have stabilization fund, $147,000, and if you remember, a couple of years ago, at a town meeting, we had to take some money out of stabilization to, fix some things, and at the time, we had said we would make every effort to put that money back into it.
Here we are.
We're hoping we'll have enough money in free cash to be able to do that, to put that back into stabilization. That's certainly our plan. Then lastly, we have a Green Communities Energy Grant, and I believe this is a grant, so we pay,
It is, it's a reimbursable grant.
the $70,000, and then they pay the $70,000 back. Is that how
Correct.
that goes?
Correct.
So that seemed like pretty much a no-brainer.
We talked about what we're doing with it.
Oh, yes. Because I don't remember what we're
I'm sorry?
doing with it. What are we doing with it, the Green Community?
The Green Communities Grant, we are going to.
Not the
I don't-
boiler, library.
No, I took the boiler out,
Right.
removed, we were gonna do a boiler
Gas conversion.
gas
At the
conversion there,
library,
right. There's work to be done at the wastewater treatment plant, the water plant, and there is some work to be done at the library.
At the library. But the library could not, we would love to convert that to gas, but the gas company has told us that they cannot do it.
Moratorium.
Moratorium, right.
Lydia?
The debt exclusion for the water main transmission, is that gonna require a special election?
No.
No.
It would. If it passes at the town meeting, it would require,
Then that
right, we didn't get it
3,000
in.
is not in my budget for,
It wouldn't be required necessarily, right?
No, wasn't it approved
that's
in the
in-
original vote?
No.
the original vote. Oh,
The original
you're
vote
right,
for
the
water-
2.4,
For
the
the whole
2.4,
The whole project was
Yeah.
approved at that town meeting,
which was a debt
up
exclusion.
to and including whatever it cost to go from the reservoir to Gore Avenue.
And that wasn't that a ballot question back then? That was in,
how
Yeah,
long
it
ago
was a
was
debt
that was in
ex- it was 2 years ago. It
2014?
was a debt exclusion.
2014? I'd have to look.
Yeah, we'll check into it. But
But
Even-
I'm just
even-
saying, if.
It could also be approved at any election.
at any election,
Correct,
we could,
correct,
but we had no plans to have a special election
okay. I
just
just
for
wanted to
this.
point that out, that I wasn't planning on special.
But, I mean, and
I'll
you
use
could,
the budget for special election.
in the event
2.4,
that,
but we've
you know,
spent it
this year we had a special election because we had an elected official that stepped down.
Right,
If you had that happen next, this coming year at some point,
do like what I'm doing now.
then
which
we
is-
could,
is
then we could
Right.
add the debt exclusion
without
to
any
it.
money.
Yeah.
But we
Well, then
wouldn't,
you come see us.
we wouldn't have one just for that.
Yeah, we're not.
I can't imagine us having one just for that. I mean,
No,
Well, I
yeah,
just wanted to point it out in case
The current one.
Yep.
it was going there. Okay.
No, it was a definite discussion, but it would be great if you could look into what we actually voted at that last debt
Yeah,
exclusion,
okay, that was.
as Fran
Derek, would you be
pointed
able
out.
to lend to this conversation? So the original appropriation authorization was for 2.4 million. Correct. And we received 400,000 from the state for that
Correct.
project.
Yes, we did,
So
Okay.
you still have authorization for
Well,
for 2,
4 million.
or, yeah, plus we spent.
That doesn't reduce your authorization.
apparently we have spent that, though.
Correct, it's been borrowed, correct. 2.4 plus.
So we don't have enough to cover the remainder of this project,
Which is the
from
most-
Chestnut to Gore.
Which is the most critical part of the project.
Right.
So
It brings it all together.
So it would be
Literally.
additional above
Right.
the 2.4.
That's my understanding, it would
Which
be
would
in
mean we
addition.
would have to have another debt exclusion vote for it,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
So we might want to think about whether we have a special election or not.
Just for that one item?
No, we might be doing free cash.
Yeah.
If we're doing free cash, then, but I mean, that's still, we could, there's multiple ways that we could handle that additional $3,000, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
finance reserve,
There's ways to,
yeah, so,
that's not an issue.
yeah. so we can just-
Right,
Have to kind of see how this goes over at town meeting.
The $3,000
That's
is the
good.
least of the
yeah,
worries, I think.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Too late to put it on the ballot now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too late to put it on the ballot now.
Okay.
So I believe those were all the capital items that Select Board, Finance Committee decided to put forward at this point in time. There were certainly others on the list, but
Right.
there's always others on the list. The next page in our budget is our, is this just snow and ice?
Yeah,
Yeah,
And of course, I should say, we're over, what are we over? $48,000? I can't remember what the number is in this year.
It's snow and ice.
it's up there,
It's up there.
which is,
Yeah, it is.
which is how it is
It is
every year.
more.
Every year.
I mean, it's
So-
kind of the way snow and ice works in every city and town in the
So this
And in the
year,
Commonwealth itself.
Yeah,
this year, we're putting $35,000 into snow and ice removal, and we will, if we have a winter like we had this past winter, we'll certainly go over that. But it is a budget that can be deficit spent, and you just, the town ultimately pays for it, but not,
yeah.
not until the following year.
Next year. I guess along those lines, now that it's nice out, you can see that it was money well spent, though, even though we don't like spending it on that. I mean, the DPW did
Oh,
another
they do a
fabulous
great job.
job this year.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're the envy a lot of, certainly of the cities, and, you know, and of many of the towns, too. The guys really do an awesome job, so, but it costs what it costs, and it always seems to snow on a weekend and at
You have
night.
to go to
and
work on King Street, you know, as soon as you hit that line.
I stay out in Northampton in the winter.
Right. So, I don't think there's, anything else that we need. Certainly, our state aid numbers, we don't actually know exactly what we're
Right.
getting for state aid until the governor actually signs something in July. But I know the House is working on their numbers now, and they tend to be as close as anybody on that, so. But they've been pretty good to the cities and towns. They generally don't cut us too badly. Well,
That's about,
anything else?
no?
Speaks to another definition of good.
Yeah.
Nope.
All right.
Are there any other questions that people might have
On the budget?
on the budget or any of the articles?
Well, we went over the capital
Well, we didn't
articles.
do the other articles. that-
Right, so.
Oh, you wanna go,
Well, I think we can, I mean, what I'm holding is the town warrant to draft. Some of the articles aren't numbered, so I'll just go in order, but many of them, if not most of them, are the boilerplate. We allow different departments to accept money and those types of things, so if everyone's okay, I'll just kind of zip through them.
Yeah.
And some of these that I'll probably skip over, we just talked about under the capital projects, so, okay. So the first article we're looking at has to do with having the town elections. The second article is that reimbursement to CPA, which we talked about for the $46,000. Accept grants, treasurer to borrow. The transportation bond is normal, Article 5, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $242,371 as the town's transportation bond with the State Department of Public Works. It's about the Chapter 90 funds. The next article is to increase this, it's not a stipend, but
This is
the
the
tax,
senior work-
the senior
work-off
work-off
program.
which we've always had.
How many people do that, Marlene?
5 more years? and I can
Correctly,
work
there
in
is,
taxes.
approximately, there's 3 or 4 people working right now.
Next article is just about tidying up the number of members on the Recreation Committee. It always, we're looking to have it as 5, and back 40 years ago, it was supposedly voted as 3, and we're just cleaning that up. So there's always been between
It's always
5,
been
it's always been between 5 and 7, so we're just trying to make it kind of official.
Right.
The more the merrier, I guess. The next article is not going to be on there, right? Or is this
Right.
about the potential combining positions, because we are actually going to,
Oh, correct that.
we're having a study done to sort of help us from an independent agency to look at the operations at Town Hall. So we don't want to make any changes till we hear from them. The next article has to do with the land next door, the conveyance of the land. We voted as a town last year to accept,
Surplus.
the next one, I was thinking of yours. This has to do with across the street, which is still moving in the right direction at a snail's pace. So this has to do with the center school to offer an easement in the back of the building. I think
Correct.
so while they're building and constructing, doing the construction in particular, but just an easement to allow the the condos bearing
Right.
the builders, thank you, access to the back, so. Open Space Committee, this is about, is that Horse Mountain?
Horse Mountain.
So we talked
To
about
acquire
that.
that land.
To acquire it, then we get reimbursed. Here's what I was thinking of, Lydia. The next article is something we voted on last year to approve, but we were told that the language we used wasn't appropriate to meet the state standards or laws, for lack of a better term. So this has to do, I'll just read it out loud, to see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept a donation of 1 acre of land abutting Town Hall property from the trustees, and then it goes into the various chapter and verse of the Mass General Law, and that's what we just have to clean up. But we already voted this last year as a town to accept.
Right. We had received a park grant, and so
Yes.
it's that state agency.
Wanted
that
the
awarded us
correct
the
lingo.
grant that- Correct.
Right.
I don't know.
There's a bylaw to just see if the town hall, excuse me, oh, Mike, I'm sorry.
That last article,
Yeah,
so if people were to vote no on that, what would happen?
The trustees would keep the acre of land,
The town would have to convey it back.
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And did we get the grant yet?
We were awarded the grant, the property has been conveyed to the town, we have the deed.
Don't plant that in people's minds, Mike. Yeah. And again, it's just to clean it up, we were just trying to do the right thing, you
I
know?
don't know what would happen if they didn't take it.
Yeah. The next article has to do with a bylaw change, which is to see if the town vote to amend the town hall bylaws by striking the language of upon both sides of the access road to the southerly side of town hall. So basically, we're looking to allow parking on one side. You can tell where I am at town hall, the driveway. Whereas right now it says no parking on either side. So the road is, the driveway has been widened, so there is room for some cars there. Yeah, Lydia?
And I don't know what the wording of the article is.
Right.
But if you're striking the words upon both sides of the access road on the southerly side of the town hall, if you're striking all that and you're not putting anything in about not
One side or-
parking on the side you're not supposed to park on, are we leaving ourselves,
I don't know what
I don't know what the rest of the,
says.
are we
No,
gonna be able
that's-
to park anywhere there, which isn't the intent?
right. Good question.
Question for the attorney.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, same as Sean, yeah, we'll just have to look up what the whole thing says.
The
When
intent
are
to
you guys
allow
gonna
parking?
sign this?
The intent is to allow
allow
parking
parking,
on one
right.
side, right. This, I
Right,
think
on
what
one
Lydia's saying is
side,
if we
but
say,
not on both sides.
right,
But do we need to have that?
you have to
I mean, that
spell it
has to
out.
be
If
a
you don't want it
bylaw.
on both, you want it on one.
See what the
You're
rest of
gonna
the
allow
thing
it on the
says.
southerly
But
side of the
otherwise,
road.
can't we just
Correct.
put
Yeah,
parking
the
sign?
southerly side of the
Has to be allowed.
southerly
Southerly
driveway on
road,
the
yes.
southerly side of the building.
Yes, Dr. Seuss, we can make this happen.
When are you?
Thank you for pointing it out.
When are
We'll,
you signing it? When are you signing?
it's gotta be done May 1st, right?
Right,
Well,
it
no,
has to be
it's gotta
posted.
be signed,
Friday.
Correct.
yeah.
They'll be signing later this week. Town council needs to finish his review.
Okay, because I gotta line it up with the chief of police to
Yeah.
get posted.
Just, so we just, are you all set with
It'll be posted
asking
on
Gary
Monday.
about that?
Mhm.
We just want to
I'll
make
ask
sure
him.
that by striking that, to Lydia's point, we're not allowing parking at all.
Or allow
Yeah.
parking on both sides.
Or, yeah, right,
Unlimited parking.
right. Okay, so that was the only bylaw article on the draft. There's some zoning bylaw articles. This one happens to be a couple pages long, which in essence has to do with the a marijuana moratorium. And it's to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Hatfield zoning bylaws by adding the following section, which basically is asking for a temporary moratorium on anything related to the marijuana law that passed last year, basically because nobody really knows what the law is exactly. And the legislature themselves are still tweaking it or updating it or doing whatever they're doing to it. So rather than opt out totally or move forward totally, we're just going to sort of put the brakes on for a little while and see how this all washes out.
It just has to do with zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the zoning
Not the
part.
law itself,
Well, yes, yes,
just the
we're-
zoning
yeah,
part.
the zoning part of the law, thank you. Planning board to see if the town vote to amend the town of Hatfield zoning map to change a portion, Helena, zoning map, owned by Helena Chemical from rural residential to business, or take any action there too. There is a citizen, there are 2 citizens petitions. The first one has to do with, it's a resolution supporting state and federal legislation to provide greater transparency in political donations and limit the influence of money in politics. There's been some articles in the newspaper regarding this in other cities and towns, and so this was brought forth as a citizen's position to have the residents vote on that. The other citizen petition is to see if the town of Hatfield will vote to increase the Board of Selectmen from 3 members to 5 members, beginning May 2018 town election. Each member elected for a 3-year term, but no member may serve for more than 2 terms or a total of 6 years, or take any action relative thereto. So those were the 2 citizens petitions. The capital planning projects we kind of just went through. The community preservation articles, at least the beginning part, is off every year. They sort of true up the books and transfer from one account to the other, and right, make it all good.
Then they make a guess on this year's.
Yeah, it's all kind of a
an estimate.
guessing game for them, so they have to true up.
Yep. Some of the other ones.
Then let's see, an article.
Community preservation
essentially
articles, we
talked
covered
about
those.
The
as well.
CPA articles we did as well.
You did talk about them,
Yeah. The last one, it's about the revolving funds. That's the same as every year for the various inspection services. And then it's kind of the budget article. The budget itself as the last article. And I don't know, does anybody have any questions about the budget or the warrant articles as they stand now? Great, thank you for being here. You guys have anything, or Lydia?
You forgot to approve your minutes, it was in your agenda, but you skipped over it, so I didn't know.
We don't have any minutes.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. if you
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, none to vote on. It was boilerplate.
Committee actually need to vote on the budget. We haven't done that yet. We'll do that after.
Okay. Frank, thank you very much. Thanks, townspeople. I hope to see you all on May 9th. Thank you.